Oh, wait, well,
Yeah, yeah. She already did. And the stream was up while she did her part. I was finishing up my part, and the stream went down.
Yeah,
we're
the
live?
stream couldn't handle Michael's intense anime backstory.
Yeah,
Yet he was talking about how his parents were killed by a nine-tailed fox, and
yeah. And then I'm still looking for my dad. Uh, his name is Monato, and I am now the first ever Black Hokage. That is my to go-to name. Yeah. Let's see. Robert is my Sasuke Uchiha, and I'm his Naruto.
Robert is edgy like that.
Yeah, we kissed in the first two episodes. It was intense.
That did happen.
I used my sexy ninja clone jutsu on him, and he was like, "Oh, Michael Senpai."
What? No.
No. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna stop there."
I like how Robert doesn't say it's
We-
not true. He just says that they're too young.
he doesn't deny it. He knows it happened. We went out. If you guys have seen Notebook, me and Robert met under the streetlights, and we danced in the rain.
No.
We embraced each other. I'm just wanting fan art to be created.
No.
Probably.
We'll just need someone to cartoon me and Robert and just like make us like fan art novels. I can see it. I have a tattoo of Robert's name. It says Smith right there on my arm. Oh, you guys can't see my arm, but yeah, it says Smith right there. It's in French. Let's see. If Robert would stop interrupting me, I could get to the next question. So, Comrade Lemon said, "Are there any plans to add the National Guard?" I feel like we touched this. Lemon, where have you been? Are there? Yeah, Lemon. What the hell? Are there any plans to implement the National Guard? Oh, Lemon's asking if we're even working. What is going? Wow, Lemon's saying that we're not working enough. That's not what he said, but that's how I'm taking it. I take offense to it. But anyways, Lemon says, "Are there any plans to add the National Guard to be able as a playable faction?" Chris, let me finish. Factions like police, the infected, and the U.S. Army, etc. Well, I'm pretty sure the Coast Guard, the National Guard, is consists of the U.S. Army and police units as well. It's like the JTF, pretty much.
Yeah, they're there for background reasons. Technically, they're with Pierce as well, but I mean, they won't be a playable faction on their own. 'Cause they would just be a crappy version of Stir, really.
Ghost, I approve of the ban hammer on Lemon. I'm just kidding, Lemon. We love you. Let's see. Let's see. I guess we can just. There's not really a lot of questions to go over. The suggestions are too in depth. Really, it's more of like trying to get questions out of the suggestions. Is like I'm having to reword everything that's in there. I guess with Killer Kitty, likes the idea that other factions could have their own strongholds, similar to how Chelsea has a hospital, and by allying with them, you can get access to support or access and support from them, and perhaps, yeah,
Robert, they're saying they can't hear you.
Oh,
Get
damn
rid
it! I was muted. I'm sad. I'm just not gonna talk anymore. Oh, you, Michael. I was muted the entire time. What are they coming out of?
Let's see. Dizzle asks, why do spitters have sniper accuracy? It's actually kind of funny when those guys are just able to obliterate snipers on top of a skyscraper.
I think I want to blame Clara for this one.
Uh.
I'm joking. That spitter meme is pretty hilarious, though. If you guys saw someone posted on the Discord of like a spitter sniping a team of snipers off of the roof.
Yeah.
That's really their only way of countering when you're on top of buildings right now. Now, mind you, we're gonna tweak it and make them maybe not as accurate going into the future. We're gonna be tweaking it so that the infected and other types of infected can climb buildings. We were working on basically being able to. Is it working now? It should be sound now. Can you guys hear me on the stream? I'm gonna assume it's working because I hear my audio thing moving. So again, it's something that we're just kind of working to in terms of basically them being able to climb the walls, and that's kind of like our temporary solution, so that when you go onto a building, you're not just invincible. Like you just they'll just because otherwise, if you went on top of buildings, they'd have no recourse to being able to stop you and it'd be unstoppable in terms of like the game. The game would be over at that point. So obviously we're still kind of playing with it. We're gonna find a better balance with it and just kind of like go with it as we develop. But it's something we're actively working on, and we're aware that it's a little bit weird. And it solves it in the short term. In the long term, we're going to be basically just doubling down on the infected AI, climbing buildings, and being able to, lower their accuracy, so maybe they miss a little bit more. They're not as like godlike.
I mean, honestly, what would also help with the balancing aspect is I'm pretty sure, this would also tie in with a question with Derek. When it comes to the spitters, if we made I'm pretty sure how their attack works. Is it a blueprint, kind of like how I can add the weapons?
Their system is not quite the same as the existing weapon system. They use a different projectile system altogether. You have to edit some stuff in C++, so if you need help balancing that, you probably have to get in contact with me a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have Visual Basic, but I don't care to install it. If that can we can kind of tweak it.
You might want to when you see how easy it can be to tweak the stuff that's already there.
Yeah, definitely. And then real quick, Sergeant Killer. This person's back. This guy got me in trouble last time. Let's see. Any plans for a 30mm cannon upgrade for the Strikers, or by adding a light tank like Bradley to help with the giant tank / armored zombie? Juggernaut?
He used a zombie word.
He used zombie words. Sergeant, what game are we playing right now? We do not speak of zombies.
It's like The Walking Dead. They don't call them zombies. They call them walkers. Now I'm joking. But, yeah, no. What do you, he's talking about the Juggernaut, right?
Yeah, any plans for, a 30mm cannon upgrade for the Striker?
Is that we have the 105 on there, don't we?
We have the anti-tank.
Yeah, we have the anti-tank one on the Striker. So you figure you could already that I think it's the 105, but that's
basically made to kill the Juggernaut.
Yeah, it's the Juggernaut / Worm Killer, where the idea is that that's kind of meant to be your anti-armored, and also for when the factions come in, when they start running around with the little technicals, the little vehicles, and you're just starting to get annoyed, and you're just like, you know what, fuck it.
I think what we should add is kind of like the Bradley, the infantry round, maybe that's made for specifically infantry. I think we could add a smaller millimeter just for that has a higher rate of fire. I think that would satisfy the kind of mixture that you can have. So you can make one that specializes in infantry and light vehicles, and another that specializes in heavy.
I had that, and Robert took it off.
I'm so sorry. Defeating a creep, it had to be maintained. I blame Clara.
Robert. What? Yeah, no, Ashley's here. You can't blame Claire for this one.
Oh, Ashley, it's your fault. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, no. It's more so. So we're talking about what vehicle? Sorry, I'm so into the game I didn't
The
process.
Striker.
The Striker. Remember, I before you had Dimitri do the heavy anti-tank one, I had the one that was more geared towards infantry and light vehicles. And then he
It would
told me
be a
to.
25 millimeter,
Oh,
honestly.
that was more so to get more mileage out because we already had a 50 cal, we already had a mortar version, and we were already getting like the huge Hauser version. So it was more so just to kind of have a round. Why does it keep getting stuck there? It's more so just to kind of like have a good distribution of like the extreme because a machine gun should be kind of enough to get that ball rolling. But I mean,
Not
I
against anti-vehicle though. That's why we'd want Bradley in at some point or equivalent.
damn it. Well,
Let's see. Ghost has
Bradley
another
makes sense.
question.
So,
It says, I know you folks discussed about having the modding community plan for the future. However, with there being Treasure Island and now the open world concept is being developed with the multiple islands, are there plans for having a handful of maps developed by you folks, or are you planning on having that solely reserved for the modding community? Oh, I think we talked about that internally.
we talked about that internally and Leeds meeting because after the debacle, that was a shit show of our implementation of the open world, where it was just basically just kind of like not what we wanted. We were just like, okay, what do we do now? How do we fix this to make sure people are like happy with the amount of content? And our conclusion was to basically do San Francisco in its entirety in the future. So this is going to end up being a fictional island, a fictional chain of islands. It's kind of like a resort slash like dead island, where it's just kind of like a fictional little like resort area with some commercial stuff and whatnot. But the end goal would be is after we get this figured out, after we understand the tech and the limitations and how big we can build these worlds until the engine literally folds in on itself, then we'll take that information and we'll go and build, from the Presidio to downtown San Francisco. Obviously not the scale, but that was a long-term goal. Because I mean, you figure, yes, it says that we're going to be in early access for a year, but you figure like we might end up expanding that and then just adding more content over a more protracted period of time. And it just kind of comes down to what do people want. Because, like, you figure coming up on May 15th, that's when we're supposed to leave early access. But I could probably see that being expanded another year or so, just to make sure that all the right systems are firing and everything is as solidified as much content that is like is viable. And then we give the modders a good base and a good foundation to go in and be like, oh, this is what they did. This is what I can build from. I can mod these levels, or I can make whole new ones, and I can see how they approached, a full like city that's like highly dense, a lot of buildings, a lot of assets going on, and I can see how they kind of approached, an area that's more foliage and just kind of like the landscapes and just kind of get a good, balance of the two and the different environments that we tried to kind of bring to the table. So definitely it's something that we're looking into long term because we're in no rush. We'll just be like, oh, the game's done. We're out to run out the door. Or this is kind of one of those things where it's just kind of like it's gonna be to compare it to another game like Kenshi, where it's gonna be like a good long period of development over 3 to 4 to 5 years of coming back to it. What do people want? How is the game playing? What's kind of janky still? What do we want to do more story content? And maybe figure out if we're gonna charge for it, if it's gonna be like before the early access price, because we're all about transparency and honesty here in terms of basically just what we're trying to add to the game. So you figure um, we've talked about lightly in terms of having some amount of paid campaign in the future, but our understanding is that like you figure that's going to be like outside the range of what we're releasing already. That's going to be for free, which is going to be year 2 plans. So like maybe in the future we'll come down the road 3 or 4 years down the road. We're like, you know what? We want to add a whole new episodic section to the story and continue it. Then we'll come back and we'll do that. Maybe it'll be paid, maybe it'll be free. It just kind of depends on just kind of how the team is at that point and just kind of making sure that we're able to deliver it. Because this kind of comes down to why we've waited so long for the campaign and his other maps. We want to make sure that we're not overextending ourselves and basically making sure that we just kind of understand like the framework of the game, and we're using this island to understand that and kind of gauge like, okay, this is how long it will take us to do the next section based off of how long it took us to do this section, and just kind of like use the gameplay mechanics. 'Cause there's a bunch of ideas going into year 2 that Derek's brought to my attention, Miles has brought to my attention, and other people have brought to my attention of really cool ideas that are really gonna reinvent the way you play the game where it's gonna be like there's a reason why pandemic mode is one mode and then campaign is another one because they're gonna be played completely different. Like, and there's gonna be a whole like process of like how you go about playing it and the research trees and just generally um, everything will be recontextualized within the confines of the story and the upgrades and everything else. So not only will you get the campaign, but obviously long term you'll get more zones, over the course of years of development. Does that make sense? Do you guys have anything you want to add to that, Chris, Ashley, anyone else?
Going
Covered
once.
it.
Oh, okay, cool. So, just to be clear, obviously, like because we're in early access, we're not trying to like monetize anything like that. So just if obviously I did say we were looking at like paid DLCs in the future, but that's like long down the road. That's like we've left early access. The game is solidified. You guys had 12 plus hours of content. There's a shit ton of replayability, and then we're like, okay, this is the budget. Let's make a story. Let's get some cutscenes done outside the reign of what the campaign that we already have planned that's going in, because that campaign is already going to be it's already like factored into our development, like what we're pushing for when we leave early access or in our minds of like the complete picture, complete package. So I just want to make sure that distinction is there in terms of like us trying to basically do some kind of like DLC thing in the future, like the next 3 to 6 months. Nope, that's years down the road. And it's only after we're confident our customer base and our fans are satisfied with what we've delivered. So back to you, Michael.
So next one is Sergeant Killer is basically asking, when we put infantry on top of buildings, would it be possible to have infected enter the buildings and be able to have a treat?
Treat?
Wait, what?
Retreat.
A treat?
No, it literally says treat and constant worry about paying attention to your units on roofs besides just worrying about spitter. So I guess like
Could you say a company of heroes a
basically
treat?
a threat? I'm not sure. It says treat. Have a treat.
Is he still on?
Yeah, he's typing right now. Sergeant, can you explain what you mean? Like, do you mean like
Oh, that's weird.
basically making it to where the units on the roofs have more threats to worry about?
Oh shit! They didn't expand this zone. This marker needs to come over from Miles' standpoint because you can't build on the bridge to fortify it, which is kind of janky. Like you can't build here in this cul-de-sac.
Okay, Sergeant corrected that. Okay, so when you put infantry on top of buildings, would it be possible to have infected enter the buildings and be able to have a threat and a constant worry about paying attention to your units on roofs besides just having to worry about spitters?
So he's talking about basically units being in the actual windows. Is that what you're talking about? If I understand correctly?
No, more of like when you put them on the roof, instead of just having to worry about spitters, are the infected going to be able to like enter the building and get up there?
I was cutting out earlier. They're going to be able to climb the building. We're looking into how, basically the idea is that we're kind of looking at how Left 4 Dead does it, where there will be objects that they'll be able to run to, and they'll be able to climb them, and there'll be no safe harbor for you. Where basically it's just a matter of time. So if you go onto a building and you start cracking off shots, the idea is that you'll start generating threat. Unless if they're silenced, it'll take longer for them to triangulate you, because we actually have like more of like a more realistic sound model like Far Cry, where it's like the more noise you make, the more they're able to approximate your location, and then once they approximate your location, they'll make a plan. And that plan right now is if it's a spitter, spit at you. But when it gets expanded upon, it'll be the spitter will be able to run up that thing and assassinate your unit if you're not paying attention at those points, or the standard infected will be able to climb up that at a slower pace and be able to get up there. So the idea is that, long term, right now you are kind of reign supreme unless the spitter fucks you. But, we're going to be looking into systems where they can get up there as well and be able to say hello. If you're just being harassment to them. Like if you're sitting up there with snipers just constantly pestering them. I mean, it'll take a while for them to climb, maybe like 20 seconds or so. But if there's a whole line of them climbing up in rapid succession, it might be better just to get a helicopter over there and pull that guy out before he gets overran when all of them start, getting hit in the top. So,
Okay.
yep.
And then with that, have you looked at how World War C does the body ladder?
Body ladder? Oh, you mean how they
Yeah,
climb on top of each other? We look
yeah,
actually,
they make this giant
everyone
paths.
everyone on the team kind of has that game, and we did look at that initially. It's something that we kind of want to look at to kind of see if that's feasible for our team, because I mean obviously every team's different and they're what they can achieve and not. But that is something that we want to, because like it's not just that we've looked at from World War Z. We've also looked at the mechanic of how the barbed wire works. Because right now, I absolutely detest the way the barbed wire works, and I think that there's a better implementation. I'm just building barbed wire so you can see what I'm talking about. Where instead of them having to hit it, they try and force their way through it, and their bodies tear at it, and then basically some of them will get stuck, some of them will die from it, and some of them will make it through. So the idea is it's more like World War Z is the approach we're going to want to go into in the future, where the barbed wire is going to kind of be like an environmental hazard, just kind of kill some of them. Other ones get stuck in the net, and then other ones will break through, depending on how dense the horde is. And that way, it'll be a little more realistic of like a whole like amalgamation of people just like piling themselves onto those things and tearing their body parts apart. So like you figure that's kind of like another example from World War Z that we're just kind of looking at and be like, oh, okay, this is something that we want to do. You just kind of like add a little more attention to detail to the world and flesh out the gameplay more. So we've thought about it for the piling, which is it's something we have to come back to because we have so much on the plate right now for the roadmap. Get that done, and then figure out what we go like for what we have planned. Figure out what's realistic for year two, and then every year after that. Any other questions?
Okay. Yes, and then another one from Sergeant. Any plans for heavy bunkers for engineers to make?
Heavy
And the house
bunkers.
infantry like Company of Hero has, and maybe add an upgrade either a medical slash ammo, vehicles repair slash refuel, or a turret that's either an anti-infantry or anti-vehicle.
They are stopping. Huh. I'll have Derek look at that. Um, so when it comes down to those, hmm. I'm sorry, I was like so fixated on them stopping that I didn't process it because I was playing the game. Can someone else take that question? It's really hard to play the game and answer the question. Who else can take the question in the room?
Regarding the bunkers, to my knowledge, we don't have much in the way of adding heavy bunkers at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if that may be feasible in the future, but I don't recall any plans for it. For house infantry, like Company of Heroes has. I'm assuming you're referring to like the little medics that run around next to the buildings. I think we discussed that an idea of something like that, but I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure if that's something that we have in the cards for the future. And a turret that's either anti-infantry or anti-vehicle. That sounds like it would be a useful thing to have in the factions update in the future if we start dealing with enemy vehicles.
And then Fillington asks, do we plan to add naval units into the game in some form?
Yes, we do. Factions will have a naval unit that can transport them from one island to the next, and there will also be like a makeshift gunboat.
Oh yeah, we're talking about the little speedboat, right?
Yeah, little
I
like
want to ask you, Robert.
Iranian Navy
Okay.
boat. Yeah, be quiet. It's my turn.
Ah.
Yeah, it'd be like a little. Since there's a lot of boats in San Francisco, Natalie and Pierce are gonna like they'll have to jerry rig them and mount guns on them and stuff like that. As for like official naval craft, it's possible. We'll have to see how these boats work when we do get them implemented.
Okay. And then another one from Sergeant. Any plans for, I gotta correct Sergeant on this, the infected to be able to swim like for late game, so if you have a heavy defense, they can break through if they could flank you by water.
Yes. Well, that's something we're looking into. I think he must have missed it earlier, where it was just kind of like we're definitely looking into their ability to swim. Myself and Derek have had several conversations about it, and now it's just a matter of just basically implementing it and just seeing how it works. We've also talked about having it to where they can build their own organic bridges, even if it's just over the section that's already been damaged. It's gonna be like more of a conversation that myself and the leads have just to kind of finalize it and what makes sense from the confines of the story, and then we'll just put it into action shortly after. Because something like that won't take too long, to just get it to the point where it's in public beta, and then we can get your guys' feedback of like, well, this is shit, and then we can figure out what to do. If you don't know yet, we're pretty nonchalant about like being if we did something bad or something stupid or a bad idea. So we have no problem with someone calling us out as long as it's respectful. It says like this is a bad idea, and then explain it, and then we'll have a debate in the Discord or something, or we'll just get in a voice call, which I've had done sometimes as well. So groovy. Back to you, Michael.
Your butt
Well,
slow.
let's see. Listen, I'm waiting on Lemon right now. Lemon looked like he was typing something. So
I'm getting ready for my
Lemon,
convoy
the
to
clock
move
is
out
ticking.
and take the Great Treasure Island. The great beyond. Okay, let me just micro these two. I'm gonna put these two in the same group. Are they in the? Let's put the two ones of guns in the same group. So I can micro those two easily. And then you're the MO. You'll stay with them for MO, and then you will be.
All right, so Lemon wants to know for people with high-end computers, will there be an option to see buildings be destructible?
Wow, he's holding no. He's holding no questions today. Um.
I feel like that would be for something later down the road, just to make that option toggleable. Because we haven't even made we haven't broke the buildings into chunks to even be destructed.
It's more so that's a long-term thing where we have to figure out how feasible that is within the confines of an RTS, the sheer amount of things that we're gonna have going on at any given time. So I don't want to answer because we're gonna have this. Like, give you an example. We already know we're gonna do destruction for these trees and these side lampposts and like these all like when you throw grenades and when cars go through it, they won't even see it. They'll just drive right through it. Like, we already know we're gonna do that. We've already talked about that internally. When it comes down to like you call it an airstrike or like a juggernaut throws a car and like it breaks this building right here, we just don't know about that level of creativity of like chaos physics because that ultimately is going to come down to the chaos destruction, which is a new system in the engine. Might be buggy, it might not be, but it's something we're a little bit worry about in terms of how much we kind of implement at this point, just to kind of like not throw in too much at once and kind of just do it in bits and pieces. So, something like that would be badass to have it because we've even talked about having it to where Chelsea will have the ability if a striker or something shoots at it, she'll be able to dodge the shell, or she'll be able to hit it and flip it, and it'll basically like land into a building nearby. And if we had destruction, we could make the argument that then that shell would fling into a building and blow up behind her and then damage the building, which would be cool cinematically. It's just something of like we have to figure out how much is that going to incur or on a cost in terms of the performance of the machines, because they're all real time when it comes down to the edge. I don't think that they're pre-baked, so it would react every time differently, and it's just kind of figuring out how is that going to affect gameplay, how's that going to affect the performance, which in turn affects gameplay regardless, because we can't play the game in terms of the frame rate dips. Um, and I believe, and this is if I'm wrong, we'll have to correct this in the future, is that the models would have to be reevaluated and looked at to make sure they're chunked correctly. Because now an interior section would have to be modeled for every building. So when you tear off this corner, you would see some kind of support strut. So that's every single building in the entire game having to be remodeled with an interior now, or having an alternate model. So when it comes down to like physical buildings, not very doable. Maybe in the long term, if it makes sense and we do some internal tests and it's not too strenuous, but definitely it'll be for trees and small little miscellaneous objects. We've talked about having cars destroyable. Myself and Derek are going to prototype some systems relating to that going into the new year, well, going into December really. That's basically just going to be along the lines of like a juggernaut can like hit a car and the car will go flinging off in the corner, like right here or somewhere else. It hits someone, it could kill your units. It could hit a car. And the idea is that's something that we're kind of playing with if you're talking about that level of destruction, where basically it would just simply affect the world dynamically, and then it would save it in your save file. And that way, if a juggernaut is running at you, all these cars will go flying in every direction. And you have to not only pay attention to that, but you have to pay attention to the juggernaut himself. That's something we're looking into. But not. Oh, fuck me. Okay, back to you guys. That's a lot of people. Back to you, Michael.
It seems so that Michael is not there, so I suppose I'll take a look at the next question. Do you think you will have some airborne? Fillington asks, do you think you will have some airborne infected forms, or is that unrealistic for the infected?
And I don't know if infected forms.
Aerial infected forms. Flyers.
Oh,
Flying.
yes, we've talked about that, and it's just more so just again this for the infected flying forms. We want to do it. It's just a matter of just finding the right time to implement it. I think Clara was playing around with the idea not that long ago, but it's just something we're going to be formulating and just kind of figuring out the best time to just kind of execute that in the foreseeable future. Um, right now, we're doubling down on the Juggernaut and the Worm, kind of being like the like they shut you down on the doctrines to kind of like help give them more firepower. Um, After that, we'll reevaluate it and figure out what's needed and be like, okay, they need flying units. So we already know we want a transport unit for Chelsea, and for her infected, a flying one. We were looking a little bit at the Mutalisk from StarCraft. We were looking at, trying to make like some kind of like Chimera like dog that'd be like the direct confrontational unit for strikers and tanks. And if we ever went that route, it basically like something that can flip your units over and kind of like it would have a tail where it could whisk basically like little spikes at you. I mean, there's a lot of ideas that we're looking at internally just to kind of figure out and make sure that Chelsea doesn't become underpowered at any given time. And it's just a matter of figuring out, okay, let's add factions in. Let's add the Worm in. Let's add the Juggernaut in. Let's see where we are. Let's see where they stand. And then based off of that, it'll be okay. We need to add more firepower to Chelsea, or she's already OP with the Worm and the Juggernaut, so we need to kind of buff this, pro that, so some of that kind of stuff. And those are things that we're constantly looking at and we're reevaluating. I mean, there's a bunch of ideas formulating when it comes down to giving these special infected more tools to play with, even of like having different casts. Like we're looking at Halo for being able to like have it to where like there are some sub mutations of the spitter and the blow up guy, where basically like they would change the way they play and the way that they act in the world. Um, there's a lot of things that we're playing with, and a lot of these things that we just can't really go too much into because some of it's year two content, where it's just kind of like what we envision is going to kind of be needed to basically just push the campaign and add more replayability long term. Um, Anything else?
Yeah, I will be right back.
Okay.
Right, I'm not seeing any new questions yet so far. Checking the Twitch chat. Let's see. Don't see any. Let's see. Yeah, don't see any new questions in the Twitch chat either. So let's see.
It just be on the Discord if there's not anything on there. Um, we should be getting to a stopping point anyway.
I checked the. Oh, okay. Well, someone just asked on the Twitch chat, since there's nothing in the AMA chat. You guys talk about the new hero type units yet?
Oh, okay. Um,
J Gatsby, GG. Yeah, that is.
I think the only hero unit. How do I word this? So I know the only hero unit we kind of have right now that we might consider putting in immediately for like as we develop would be what's his I can't remember brain fart Chris. What's the Winter's right hand man?
Cole. Sergeant Cole.
Sergeant Cole. I'm sorry. Yeah, Cole. We were considering maybe that. We did have more than we were playing with, but that'll come down to the campaign and kind of how that plays out. Because honestly, what's going to end up happening is the campaign is going to basically, when we make content for that in year two, that's going to come over to pandemic mode. So when we implement a new faction for, I kind of spoiled it there, but I've spoiled it in the past anyway. Is when we implement a new faction in the future, that faction will show up in the campaign, and then they'll randomly start showing up in the open world as well in pandemic. So it's going to follow the same kind of formula where, if we have more hero campaigns, which we're going to have inevitably eventually, then they'd first show up in the campaign and then they'd be buildable units in the actual pandemic mode. Um, I know we've talked about having some kind of hero creator, like Battle for Middle Earth 2, that's a long-term goal of just in the future. I'd love to have that because then that way you can make your own winters and be able to basically, edit it from there. Um, where is? Okay, let's go over here. All right. So, any other questions?
All right. Not seeing something from the AMA or from the Twitch chat at the moment, so I can just come up with a topic to fill the air, I suppose.
I'm sorry. What?
I don't see any more questions currently in the AMA or in the Twitch chat, so I can just come up with something to fill the air, I suppose.
Sure. Why not?
All right. Any of y'all have a particular YouTube channel that comes to mind that y'all want to share with anyone? A channel you enjoy or something? Like Robert, what do you think?
Oh, well, not that kind of fill the air. Related to the game, of course.
Ah, okay. Sorry. Just let's see, something more related to the game. Okay.
What the heck you said to me? Oh, that's the tower.
What? Okay. What is your feeling on the if I'm coming up with something for feature creep or not for feature something for AMA? Sorry, words are blending together in my head. Okay, something for the we have a question coming in. It looks like just a second. All right. Leblon asks Spellforce type unit control and campaign.
I'm sorry. What?
Spellforce asks Leblon asks, will we have Spellforce type unit control and campaign?
What's Spellforce? I don't know what Spellforce is. Sorry. What is Spellforce?
I'm looking it up
Is
right
that a
now.
is that a
It
game?
seems to be. Yeah, it's a game.
Yeah.
See here. Yeah, it's an RTS RPG hybrid. It looks like.
I wasn't aware that game existed. I destroyed my mule.
Yeah, he says where there. Leblon clarifies, yes, where there is a pre-made campaign, but you play with specific hero units.
Oh, that's what he's getting at. Okay, so when it comes down to the campaign, which is again something we're gonna be talking more for year two. So again, things might change here and there, but the idea is that you'll basically have like a little starting area that you start from. I guess you could the closest comparison is Wings of Liberty. When it comes down to it, is that's kind of how we're kind of envisioning it, but more persistent. Where oh god damn it, they're redirecting to attack my shit. Where it's more of like basically you'll be able to carry units over and bring them, and your upgrades are persistent. But we're looking a lot at like how Wings of Liberty does their campaign. Wow, they're really fast.
Oh, Lemon missed me.
Yeah, Lemon missed you.
Hey, did you guys get the Twitch questions?
Yeah, we did. I believe we did. Shit, they're gonna cap it.
Jay Gatsby just asked, would you guys add any type of functionality to the compounds around the map that Com Tower and the Lighthouse Providence, or like the Com Tower?
Was it like you mean like what do you mean by that? That's kind of a big question.
So
I think
like
he means-
basically.
Oh.
Well, Derek, do you want me to finish the question?
Sorry, go on.
Basically like I guess like
that gives you some kind of like thing for you to use in the game.
the stream just went down.
Did it?
Yep.
Can you still hear me?
I still hear you. I'm waiting for the stream to come back though. It says live.
Hold on.
Yeah, everyone's saying it's dead. Okay, I see video now.
I'm gonna go chew out Comcast. So I mean I think that's a good finishing point. One more question. Let's just do one more question.
Well, Jay, did we get your question answered or did it cut out? Yeah, Lemon, I think it's that potato internet Robert has.
No, I have 1 gigabit internet. It's just the fucking Comcast is malfunctioning.
No, Robert bought a potato battery and he's using it to run his internet. Don't be fooled.
The hell with you.
His computer is running on fucking Lay's potato chips right now.
I just saw like 2 little clamps on a potato chip.
He's got to overdrive it, so he got slightly salted.
I'm sad now. Thank you for that.
All right. So, okay. So there's actually like 4 more questions, and we can wrap it up there.
Okay, let's wrap it at that point. Hit me with it.
All right. So, Lieblan, I'm gonna fuck that up. Spellforce type unit control and campaign. Is there a pre-made campaign? But you play with specific hero units, kind of like Left 4 Dead, but an RTS.
Oh, did I hear what I? It's gonna be more like
It is.
it's gonna be more like Wings of Liberty, where the idea is that Wings of Liberty but more persistent. If I were to compare it to something, where essentially you'll be able to bring some units over to the fight from previous ones. Your upgrades will be persistent, and obviously you'll have Winters or another hero unit that's constant, and it'll basically just recontextualize these islands because most of the campaign will take place here. And basically just kind of like actually have like set pieces and little things like that just kind of give you a little more context to Chelsea and the virus and how it got to the point it did in the book. Because some of it will extrapolate on the book, some of it will be stuff that you haven't even heard of in the book.
Okay. For whatever reason, my caps lock was on.
Thank you, Michael.
So then another one is from Dizzle asking, while making this game, were we inspired by SCP call?
I didn't even know that existed until Derek mentioned it one
I
day.
sent you the videos.
I know, but
on,
that was yesterday. I know. I'm just saying, like, I didn't even know SCP was a thing. It was more so just it was really from, like, I guess you could say, just seeing a lot of zombie movies and games and never actually being able to be the person in control of the actual outbreak and trying to, like, see if you want to handle it ethically or not ethically in terms of like how the events unfold. So it's kind of building towards that direction as we just kind of built the framework. So it's something like watching The Walking Dead and Left 4 Dead and a bunch of other games. I mean, it's really just Prototype is a huge one.
Okay.
World War Z, the movie, that's another big one. It's a whole, it's a love letter to, like, I guess you could say, like, the zombie genre as a whole, because it kind of takes ideas from just every kind of zombie game out there, and it takes some from some that aren't even zombie games. I mean, because you figure we wanted to make an RTS game because of Company Heroes, and just what that kind of brought to the table, and what we thought we could kind of maybe add to it over the course of development. We took aspects from Supreme Commander. I mean, there's a lot where just kind of we sat down and we were like, okay, let's just see what we could do to just kind of try something new, but still make it kind of familiar.
Okay. All right, and then Levelin also said, remove capture points and make capturing buildings be fortified and upgraded to have pre-made defense structures. I think that was talked about for the factions.
Huh?
Like basically remove capture points and make captured buildings that can be fortified and upgraded to have pre-made defense structures.
Oh, so he's basically making the argument that instead of having the infected basically just set up a point randomly, they're capturing and infesting a building. Is that what he's trying to say? If I understand correctly?
I guess so. I don't know. It was kind of like
So, like, Days Gone? Is that what he's suggesting?
I'm not sure. It was just a separate
Oh,
question.
because that's what
I don't
Days
know if it's together with this other thing.
because that's what Days Gone does. Is Days Gone, their areas are like that.
Hmm. I'm not sure. Leland also says use Lovecraft names for the from the worm and other super special infected.
I died. This is great.
Yeah,
Yay!
the real worm's name is Yogg-Sothoth.
What? When do you come up with these names? Wasn't he
Probably,
Larry?
right?
Wasn't he
Possibly another one.
Lovecraft reference.
wasn't he
God,
Larry?
educate yourself.
Wasn't it Larry or something weird? I forget what it was.
Larry?
I thought it was Bob.
No, it was oh god, what was it, Ashley? It was oh no. What did we name it? Francis. Yes, it was Francis. That was the name of the worm.
Yeah.
Francis.
Please kill me.
So the whole story behind the worm is it's looking for its love.
It's really hard to play the game,
Yeah.
Levin, and talk to people, so I'm gonna find you. But yeah.
Yeah, Lemon. Thanks for tuning in to watch Robert get fucking destroyed.
Thanks for tuning
I think
in.
it was
Yet
worth it.
another
By his
stream me
internet.
getting destroyed by my internet and the game. 10 out of 10. Alright,
Without
so
Vaseline.
is that all the questions we have? Like, is that the last one?
Yeah. I mean, as long as Jay's question got answered.
I believe it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sucked for us.
It got recorded, so hopefully it was
It
answered.
got recorded.
So yeah. I think that covers everything. So I'm just gonna say let's give it like another minute to see if any last minute questions, and then let's just go ahead and wrap it up.
Oh. Okay.
Let's see. Just making sure because somebody was typing.
Alright.
No one's typing anymore, so yeah, I guess that's
Well,
it.
well, worst case, they can put it in the channel. And then basically just kind of go from there. For next time we do a question, or I can just answer it in suggestions, of course, because I typically answer those regardless. Alright, so we'll leave it at that. Sorry for the internet issues that we have. We're going to try and get that worked out so the next time that we do this for the foreseeable future, the next couple of, quite a few months from now, we'll try and do it every like 2 to 3 months. Basically just get together and just kind of show the game, play it, talk about it, figure out, X, Y, and Z, and have some fun. Um, Thank you guys for coming, and you guys have a good Sunday. You guys want to say
Everyone have
bye? Everyone say bye or something. I don't know.
Bye.
Bye.